And, I'll call the meeting to order. By asking everyone if you had an opportunity to, look over the minutes, if you have. And if there are no corrections, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Could be, not just looking over right here in this case, on the report, the finance deed part of it, the Fort City pays 40% of property value. I don't recall that from that conversation. Or where that was coming from.
We need to make a correction there.
Yeah, I don't recall that conversation
I can strike it.
being in play.
Mhm.
It might have been a side note, sorry.
Needs to be strict. I don't know that number. I don't remember that conversation coming up.
After it's we ask questions.
But I'd go ahead and ask questions.
Okay, just because I haven't seen it before. Can you tell me on the Enbridge,
Mhm.
it says they make donation to the school's chamber fire.
Mhm.
Do you know, was it
Of course, it-
a money donation?
Go ahead to purchase, equipment. I'm not sure the amount, but it's to purchase equipment for fire.
And that's covered in that.
Okay,
I think it's a $10,000
Okay,
grant.
that's what I don't recall that number being. No, ever.
It could have
It was to update equipment.
okay.
We're striking that piece is all I've seen.
Okay. Any other questions or comments or corrections? Mr. Baylor can bring me to speed on that.
Sorry, I want to. Hold on.
Hold on.
I don't want to spill. Okay.
Motion to, approve the minutes as written.
Okay.
With the strike through.
With that strike,
Yes.
okay, second,
Second.
any other discussion? Not all in favor, say aye. Motion carried.
Do we know, has this been, how many EMS calls are being made to the prison? Someone looked into that.
I cannot say.
Okay, I can.
Committee reports, is that what?
Audit met on December the 4th. The main reason for our meeting was for officer elections. I was voted as chair, Mr. Dennis is vice chair, and Mr. Ford is secretary. Those were all elections by acclamation. Mainly the thing that we talked about was the telecommunicating from the work from home policy, but that had, Mr. Dennis was over personnel at the time, and he told us that there was no action to revision of that policy. I do know that Mr. Beller has sent out emails to the department heads, tell them to be aware of this policy, make notations, you know, just to kind of watch it. So right now, that's just kind of at a standstill. Ms. Thomas has told us the FY 2023 audit, of course, was just about done. I think they were doing the exit meeting on December 19th. And we'll know the finalized about, we haven't gotten any full report back from them. Of course, it probably won't be here until February or March. We did mention, and I don't know if you have found anybody else, because I haven't spoke with you since the holiday, on the committee makeup, maybe adding one more person to the audit committee. And I know we were gonna look into that, but at this time, I don't know any updates on that due to the holidays. But that was pretty much the consistency of our meeting, and we don't have a meeting scheduled at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, Billy?
We haven't met since the 30th, and when we did meet on the 30th was election of officers. I myself was elected chair, Alan Carmen was vice chair, and Miss Atwood was elected secretary on my acclamation. We have discussed where we went to the courthouse with as far as Mr. Beller and litigation on that, but we've all had an update since then because it's met back in October. We're still waiting on information on the Big Bend property be torn down. And, we hit on the highlights of the health department as far as, there was I'm trying to look at this, it's been a minute since I looked at this stuff.
I think there were some questions, not to interrupt you, but there were some questions on the layout, what, if the layout was changed on it. Was the price still gonna be the same? But the layout is been revised instead of being wide, it's going back narrower. But it's still they're still gonna need the same funding. For I think it was a cooler
Yes.
and the pharmacy,
Mhm.
if I recall.
And a storage.
And it's an excessive storage for maybe pharmaceuticals or something,
Correct.
without me physically looking at the notes.
Right, and then I'm looking at this here, we also, had a motion second by Carmen, I made the motion, he made second to, for the community center, center fees to be elevated to 200 for 1 day, and if you rent multiple days from there, it'd be $100 a day for the second day thereafter, and there's no waiving fees for anyone. Then there's gonna be a renter's liability waiver drawn up with rules and regulations to be posted.
Was it decided that they would not be making deposits, they just pay flat $200?
That is correct, that's it, I do remember that being in there as well.
And I guess that needs to go before the court on this month to get final approval.
Yep. That's what we have on it.
Thank you. David Thomas,
I do,
I'm sorry.
another note on that, you were asking on the Big Pen property, I know Tri-County has been down there, and I did see the state down there, I think the state was down there yesterday, or
Yeah.
might have been this
The big
morning.
day is Monday, the 8th. They moved it from
Okay.
December 18th because of some of the utilities had not been cut loose to their satisfaction. So Tri-County spent a lot of time down there. And so they moved the date to the 8th, which is Monday. And TDOT is saying they will wait to spring to go in there and put in the permanent piling. But right now it's temporary. But yeah, the building's coming in.
And our next meeting is scheduled for the 8th and 17th.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
Codes and zoning has not met. We're meeting tomorrow at 7. We'll be electing officers. Wanted to give Mr. Gregory time to kind of get the rest of what he was working on, so that we'd have something to actually look at as far as the combining of everything. Didn't really have a need to have a meeting here in December, so we just chose to have that off. So we'll be electing officers tomorrow, and Rick's supposed to be bringing in quite a bit for us to go through.
Good. Russell.
Okay, so on November the 8th, I was made chair, Milner is vice chair, Secretary is David Thomas. Let's see, so if we start with fire. TriStar Public Solutions, or Kevin Lauer, was still doing evaluation for possible merging of the fire and rescue. I don't know, is he turned anything into you?
Yeah.
I spoke with him end of November. And he said he hadn't completed it, but he's gotten a new job, so probably a little bit less time that he has available for this. So I guess he'll get it turned into us. Again, he said it's suggestions if we wanted to add to it, take away from it. That's, I guess, in our ballpark after we receive it. A thought of mine with going into merging the fire and the rescue is that they need to both be underneath county. And if it needs to be talked about now and a little bit down the line, there can be a resolution that gets them away from the firefighters being exempt from training, which they were exempt for years because it costs to go to the academy and Fire 1, Fire 2, Lightburn, Now it is free. And there is their ability to get $600 for the training. And so that's something that can, be brought up at the EMS committee if we keep going forward with it. And there'll be a lot of discussion on, I guess, with that. For EMS, their supplies, they say they're real good with. The ambulance they still don't have, is that correct?
What?
It's supposed to be coming, the ambulance.
This year, sometime
Yeah.
this year.
The medical examiner, he has now retired, so
End of the month. Mhm.
what,
We're looking at three prospects. Mr. Beatty brought two, and then the hospital system bringing two, so we're going to evaluate three of those before the positions fill.
okay, so Cliff Salee had brought a contractor to the building down there at the EMS, to evaluate its needs. I don't know if, I can ask if that's been completed. My thoughts on whenever I became chair, because I sat down and thought about it for a good amount of time, is that, with us being like the purse strings, whatnot, I thought about how to do that while I was doing this role. So I wanted to veer towards training, and if we needed to pay for people to go to training, readiness and POs. I figured those are the things that, money-wise, that I could help evaluate them. So that's, when I'm talking about the building evaluation and things like that. Those are just things I thought of to kind of concentrate on this year.
Are you working with Mr. Beatty on that? Have y'all talked about those things?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. We talked about the overtime issue in the past, and now that there's less paramedics, one thing might be to find out whether or not more money could be put towards insurance. That might make it more of something that people would be willing to stay for, as if there would be good insurance for them, would be something that would keep some paramedics. Or my other thing was the wage study. And completing a little piece with our wage study to help keep us up to par with like whenever nearby counties go up a step. Maybe we also go up a step to kind of compete with them, I guess. Let's see, rescue, I've spoke with Bud, and he has given me some information about whenever his little area was evaluated. He sent me pictures. He sent me a training agenda for the next year, and things seem to be going really well with him. I asked him to see if he couldn't get a compliance officer, training officer, that would make things a little bit easier when meetings come around, is having somebody that concentrated on that. So that's all I got for the meeting.
Okay. Any questions?
Okay, you mentioned one piece about a resolution for fire coming under a county's piece, so that there wouldn't be an exemption for certain trainings.
Yes.
In my understanding, in the past, the fire 1, fire 2, how much time does it take to get a fire 1 and a fire 2? And that's
So fire 1 is 64 hours, and then fire 2 is 16.
And the reason I asked that question is we're looking forward to that, and that conversation being brought to the table today. 64 hours to a volunteer that works somewhere else is quite difficult for someone to do. That's a week and a half of their work. There's a reason that piece has been looked at before and didn't make any ground. We've got a lot of good individuals that are willing to show up and try to work, and a lot of their companies that they work for here close by let them leave, and they've got a deal work out where if something comes up, they get a call, they leave. That we can work out a week and a half off with these individuals with paying $600, maybe $600, but that probably is not going to cover their pay for a week and a half's time. Just
Well, they could also
understand.
take,
Yeah, I did it years ago. I did fire 1, and it was several weekends.
yeah, it can, yeah. So, and I believe that if we continue with with merging, if, you know, and if it all comes to pass that we don't end up merging, you know, that's. Can be a different ballpark, but,
Emergency one.
the fire and rescue. But, yeah, and speaking with the compliance officer over in Wilson County, there's even now incentives for after you complete them for getting a check at the end of the year for both of them, so. I feel like it's a step in the right direction.
What's the benefit of merging fire and rescue versus what we have right now? Because it's been talked about for I mean,
Ages.
almost 10 years now. It's gotten to the ground and failed. So what's the purpose?
There's goods and bads of both of it. So, again, it's probably gonna be a lengthy discussion and process. I know in the past that I wasn't in favor of it. But if it's going to be fire and rescue, I guess that's a smaller scale, and they would be combining their efforts and their equipment, and a lot of them are on both. So once we get the evaluation and, you know, talk with people and figure out if this is something that is gonna work with us, if it's gonna work with the guys, if it's gonna work with the county, then I guess we can keep pressing. Support.
Would it not be more cost efficient?
Probably.
Probably so.
In the long run.
Yes, sir.
Oh, just speaking to what we're talking about there, most of the other one we were talking about there in this case, fire and rescue, 2 volunteer services that we have, a little easier to pull together. The merger that was shot down 2 or 3 years ago was a push to merge fire and EMS together. Different merger we're talking about there. EMS is a paid department out of here, fire and rescue are both volunteer departments. That's a little bit simpler move, I think, in this piece. My only concern was the question about changing our exempt status for volunteers, and I would certainly hope we take a strong look at that before we go that far inside the merger. That's all I'm gonna bring up.
Well, I would rather have somebody that has training to be able to get paid to do it than somebody who has on the job training. Which I guess is from how I'm looking at it with that. So I work in an ER, and, you know, it's just continual, you know, training, and I definitely would want somebody putting something in my IV that had schooling rather than someone who would watch somebody do it. Anywho.
What's the fire chief and once the other over the rescue, I mean, what are they saying about it? Are they wanting to do it or is it something?
I think they're reserving right now, their feelings on it. I think Mr. Beeler is waiting for Kevin Lauer's direction before he really has a whole lot of discussion about it.
The reason it got slowed down was that at the time Mr. Lauer came on, Daniel Harris was up there and they never got to talk, and then Daniel left. And then it's been a matter of getting with Mr. Bailey to discuss it with him, since we don't have a person here to rescue of. And I've talked to Matt extensively about who within rescue has the leadership skills to be a rescue chief, and he just is comfortable right now with naming someone among the people that he has. They're good at what they do, but as far as leadership skills are concerned, there's some questions. So I think once Mr. Lauer finishes his study, and he has been elevated to a pretty high position in the state, so he probably doesn't have as much time as he did. But as soon as that study's over, then we'll put everybody together.
Yeah, I think Beatty is leaning towards Bud Sutherland.
Yeah, and Bud,
being
of course, Bud
interim.
has some health issues.
Yeah.
And his doctor will not release him to work fire, but he has released him to. And one of the issues they've had in rescue is that because Bud's not a big guy, and more they're sending women out on runs with the ambulance, is lifting issues. And sometimes fire's been called in to support them, so there's some things that they're being worked through down there.
With fire, what are we doing as far as a chief? Is Beeler just taking that role at this point?
Well, he was present at the last commission meeting, was chief. And has a couple of 3 young men they're developing now to step into his shoes after he were too. That's kind of the plan. Thank you, Ms. Russell. Mr. Gully.
Yes, sir. Finance met, on November 20th was our last meeting. Of course, we don't meet in December, these. That was our first meeting with the new, approved, members. In that meeting, we elected, winning the elections first off. I was elected chair, Mr. Gregory here, was elected vice chair. Ms. Amy Thomas, is secretary of that, committee. We also, in that committee, y'all remember there was some discussion that came up in that election piece, that it has a subcommittee off of that committee. The subcommittee on that one, ended up being with, Ms. Atwood, Commissioner Atwood, Commissioner Gregory, myself, Commissioner Dennis, and Commissioner Ford were elected to be on the purchasing subcommittee of finance committee. That's a quarterly, purchasing is what that one is. So, we'll get all that figured out as we roll along. So there's 2 committees inside there, subcommittee inside that piece. In that, the rest of the pieces, we looked over financial pieces for October. You know, we're roughly at 33% of the budget at that time. I know we are fixing to see our next set, and you know, you're getting to half year through the piece, you'll get a little bit better understanding of where we are and how things are being spent. But things looked good again. We did see and hear from Dr. Satterfield on his quarterly of that one, where he would give us, and I know it was a month late, apologize for that, it was in the mix of things there, got mixed up. But it was his quarterly report, which he gives to give us an idea of where the schools are running and how they're running that way. It's not all so fresh when it comes to us in March or in April when we start looking at budget again. So as we're looking along there, he presented, went over a few of these pieces with where things were. All the motions that we rolled through, we've already voted on those. We do have our next meeting, of course, here in January coming up on the same night of the work session. No major pieces on that meeting at all. We did see that some of the dollars that we had discussed have got moved. Ms. Carmen was able to move some money into a interest drawing account instead of the 0.7%. It's drawing about 4.5% on this for a period of time. They're on a little over $1 million right now. Some money that was available to the county. When I say that, that is not the loan money. That is money that the county had available to save the equity at that point. So drawing a decent amount of interest right now. That's the report.
Any questions, Mr. Gully? Thank you, Mr. Gully. Mr. Burton.
Last meeting in November, I was elected chair, Steve Whitaker was vice chair. I'm sorry. Henry Russell was elected vice chair. And Chris Gregory was elected treasurer. Secretary. I'm sorry. I'm tired. Basically, I mean, the talk was mostly about the jail. We're waiting on getting a hold of the mayor and getting a hold of the architect. We're making a run with that. Hopefully we'll get something going this January.
I'll have that date. Thanks, sir.
And the month of February, I will be out of pocket. I'm taking some time off and I won't be anywhere around, so.
Enjoy.
I will be enjoying it.
So, well.
That's all I have.
You want to leave your cell phone number in case we don't.
Time off, right?
Thank you,
Straight up.
sir.
Do you wanna have a meeting or do you wanna skip it?
I don't care. I'm not just saying if we do, usually those meetings are through Ray Russell anyway, so that's.
Mark Presley, personnel.
The last meeting was November 6th. There, of course, no meeting in December. On November 6th, they elected me chair, Steve Whitaker vice chair, and Will Dennis secretary. And I'll give you about scheduling the next meeting.
Bud Gregory.
we hadn't had a meeting since October 25th. I think I went over there last meeting, but we elected officers at that meeting. I was chair, Taylor, you're vice chair, and Chris Grigor's secretary. I mean, a lot of the stuff we talked about is over in the building committee now about the courthouse and stuff of that nature, and he went over that. That was about it. I'm gonna try to schedule another meeting for January 24th. I ain't got with Amy, but I was gonna see that date was open at 6 o'clock.
Any questions on Mr. Gregory?
Have you had any, heard any more about our
The
playground?
contractor will be here on the 18th to start, so, you know, we've got him
January.
Hmm.
January.
January, yeah, so he's coming in 2 weeks. Okay, under other discussion, I'm gonna go to discussion from the last minutes and talk about 2 or 3 things. Jail update, the phase 1 economic, environmental study was completed, which means we don't have to go to a phase 2. I'm still working with a contractor on getting the assessment of the building. The architect is going to be here next week to do a walkthrough of the Holder building. I have an extensive letter that he sent after a meeting with Sheriff Russell and me last month, in which he gave us a timetable, and he is projecting to be a project bid point on December of 24. So he's coming back with a plan to go ahead. He said 1 year from our last meeting, which was December, so we won't have numbers until the end of 24. I would suggest that we go ahead with the purchase of the Holder property. And I'll bring that before the commission this month. We signed that agreement in September, which means we've got 6 months to move on it or renew it. So that issue will be coming up right away. The thick pin building, I don't know why we named it that, but it's coming down on Monday, according to TDOT. TDOT sent us a letter today asking why the mayor did not sign off on the streetscape project in December. And it's because Amy answered that by saying, I would be willing to sign when they let us know they're sending us that $70,000 back. So she didn't get a quick answer today when she said that's the reason I hadn't signed off on it, but we still hung up on about $70,000 worth of money that has not been released. We turned in the grant for the Ward School to the tune of 2.2 million.
How much?
2.2.
Okay.
2.2
sure
million with a 10% match. Which I discussed in the work session before the court's last meeting. Right now, we're in a favorable position with that. GNRC got back with us, has told us from the beginning that it looked good for us. The state sent back with 2 or 3 basic things that they wanted questions asked that were due today. GNRC asked for a 5-day extension, which was granted, so we have until Monday or Tuesday next week to get. And then the questions about contractors and architects and did we have a game plan for how we would go forward after the project was completed, some things like that, which we're answering and get back to them by the end of the week. EPA is telling us that they will begin their phase 1 study of the Ward property, the 8 acres, 10 acres this month on the Brownfield project. We're still on the multimodal grant on the sidewalks from Main Street. That's still in the works to begin soon, but it's a matter of, they've asked us, does a certain person in the department have a certain certificate or certification, which we may have to send. It's not holding up the project, but we may have to send somebody, could be me. There was a meeting in Jackson in December, but it filled up pretty quickly. And so the next time that train's offered, either Mr. Salee or someone within the department get that train. That's all the things. The downtown revitalization project to do the Christmas tree and the lights has been extremely popular. And the Christmas sleigh, y'all probably know that the gala raised about $48,000, and we see that as a real opportunity to continue to raise money to do things downtown. I'm working with someone right now who's interested in buying more than one building downtown. If we could get the ownership of some of those buildings in fewer hands, it would give us a lot more leverage downtown. There's just a lot of things going on right now. Most of them moving in the right direction. So, any questions y'all have of me, I'm glad to try to answer. Yes, sir.
I do have one, as we're looking at the purchase of that property. You say it's gonna come up this month in commission. Do we, I believe that was 5.5 million, do we have a route we want to try to look at
Financing
that, not just financing, but paying that payment, because we don't have money coming in
the
there.
first year, we'll need to sit down with, and I had planned to sit down and budget finance before I even said that tonight.
Okay, 'cause that's a little, got me.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's, I knew it was coming up, so it's not
And-
off.
And it would be fine to wait February to bring for the commission, and that might be the best way to go.
Just to get an idea what we got planned.
I'm very flexible on that.
I'm not meaning.
I don't want the 6 months to run out. Is
Yes.
basically what.
Right now, we only have
And
about,
I certainly didn't mean to throw you a curve.
Yeah. but we've got about 500,000 sitting in ARPA funds left over, which can go towards the down payment of some of that, but that's. All I know of excess that's sitting around at this point in time. So,
It does look like, according to the timetable that the architect has given us, that we're not gonna be under the gun in 2024 to start making the jail payment.
right, but a $5 million, 5.5 million. Payment was gonna come up for the property,
Would at some point, yeah, on that.
yeah, in 20.
Yeah.
So that part of it's gonna come to play.
Yep.
And I'm only saying that this way because I've had a few in the community, and different people out, and this, we've had different things talk about it. At some point in time, we're gonna have to get back to the conversation of what do we want to do in terms of wheel tax. It may not be now, and there may be future dollars that are coming our way that are short term. The reason I bring that up, and here, just to let us chew on it here and think about it as you go forward. I've heard some members of the community start to speak on the conversation of my piece is, I've always said this, I think it goes to the voters, when we go to that piece, still at that place. But I've had some members, and I've spoken to where we sit and where we're looking at, that's an August conversation. We can't pay for a $5.5 million piece. We hope in August something's voted in, so we gotta have a plan, is what I'm getting at. Think about this conversation as we're going forward a little bit. And I was gonna bring this up in our next meeting. I've had some members talk, of the public, mention, they know where we're at, mention that maybe you do a temporary, short-term voted on by the commission. Here's what we know we've got in front of us. We're gonna vote on this at this point in time, a short-term piece to get some money moving in that direction. 5.5 million is not gonna cost us the 60 cents on property tax. If that's the way we wanna go. It's gonna cost more, it's about a fifth of it is what it's gonna cost. So you take that 60 cents, divide it by 5, and you get an idea about what we're talking about. 12 cents of property tax would cover that roughly at this time. So there's some pieces that, what I'm saying is, it's coming our way. You need to get your mind on those conversations. Finance is gonna have to look at a route of where we're gonna finance this from. It could be a short-term wheel tax that's covering this up until we know this, or until we get it on the ballot. There's some options. If it fails, then I agree that it's gonna fall back on the property tax. It's pretty much what we're looking at. That's 12 cents, 13 cents. Roughly. I haven't done the numbers exactly, but it's gonna be pretty close to that. The $25 million conversation that we we're talking about for the prison or for the jail was gonna cost roughly 60 cents, 59 point some change cents of property tax at the current rate. Just gives you an idea where we are set. So chew on that conversation about, I've had some members of the public, I don't think the public will be very happy if we, as a commission, vote on a wheel tax for an extended amount of time. And I won't be ready for that myself. I would not push that, but I think we could, here's where we're standing, here's what we're looking at. We've got to make this land bank. To me, the land is not an option. It's part of our city park. We lose our park if that sells to somebody else. I don't see an option in this place. I'm appreciative that we've got the first opportunity to buy.
I will tell you two things that I really pressed upon in our last meeting, because I really wanted to hear him say this or see if he felt this way. I said, how much money is it going to save this county by using that property rather than going outside. And he said, well, right off the bat, you're saving $1 million because the building is sitting there. But he said, using this building with your sewer and your water and your level land already done versus doing the 20 acres excavation, he said, which would have been a major piece. Sewer and water, he said, you're saving several $1 million by going this route. So that it's very important we communicate that to the public, that we're just not looking at just buying a big piece of land. There are millions to be saved by doing it this way.
As much as 30%.
Mhm.
It's a good number.
Yeah, that's the number we talked about was 30.
I'm still thinking. This is just the mayor thinking, but I'm still thinking. That this thing can be done. Property purchased and jail built for under what we originally talked about, this total project costing. I think it can be done. We'll just have to see.
I certainly hope it can, because the cost, that's why we're saying, here's what the numbers are. Current. Like I said,
And that's not downsizing the jail. At one time, I know we were talking about if we could do a smaller or something, but
The architect said he's gonna come back with 3 options: 148, 124, and 112. With the ability, what they look at is what he calls a pie model. He said is that,
Yeah, well, outside of it.
and that you could not necessarily develop one of the pieces of the pie, but have it there to expand when you needed to. So,
I think that's a smart move. That's how high school was built. This high school's built right now, both ends are already level set, the materials are there to build out 4 rooms on each one. Right now, they can build 8 rooms to that high school, that was in the original plans of that high school. So they can build 4 rooms out each wing, that's why there's a lot of grass, the outside areas that you see, where the building ends on each end, but each wing can extend 4 classrooms. You're talking about extending the building by 8 classrooms, it's smart for us to build with a plan to extend it, not easily
Easily.
come back, exactly.
to have a
Go and have
situation where
pieces.
you can expand easily at not a great cost.
That's correct. I think the original projections for the numbers were in 15 years, you're gonna need this amount of people. Well, that means we don't have to have them today, but we can be ready to short and simply expand.
And how many dormitory rooms you use is a big difference in your square footage. I know when I visited the Grundy County Jail, it's really interesting. When I visited that jail, it was so interesting to see that they had 2 towers and one person, you're forgetting, that's monitoring. And I didn't see that many more people in there. And Sheriff Russell told me the other day, if this thing's built right, he thinks he can run it with the staff he has today.
God, I hope not.
Huh?
I don't care. I won't be there anyway.
But it was interesting in this, as he talked about the pods, and he said, I'm using his
He's
language.
right.
He said, you know, you got the knuckleheads here, you got the in between the knuckleheads and the minimum security people here. You've got minimum security here in the dormitory, and you've got women over here, and so you've got one person watching it all. And that's why the IT part of this is incredibly important.
Crucial.
That it be done right from the beginning, because it is the piece that makes a big difference.
One board will do the whole thing.
And that's something you don't want to scrimp on. That's what they told me, Grundy County said, if you're gonna put extra money, put it in your IT. Because it controls so much.
And someone or some entity to be the support for that IT
Precisely.
in county. That's gonna be a big, I mean, the county itself is growing to a point where we need to have an IT person.
County needs it, it's the technologies are too bad.
Yeah.
Especially that jails, but
And we're getting more and more cameras in the park that, you know, are very sophisticated capabilities, but we don't have anyone who knows how to operate on payroll.
Yeah, nobody knows how to fix it. It takes 2 days to fix it.
So I mean,
It's pretty easy to call, outsource those things, see what the cost is there, versus before we can do that. There's some pretty good companies around, that can get it pretty quick.
I wish they'd find it. Because we're fighting with the one we have now.
So from a personal standpoint, I think it's a very exciting time for our county. I think there are a lot of opportunities out there. I am finding by the day, more and more grant opportunities that it's working on, you know, having the people to do it, and again, it's your suggestion. Mr. Billy, I'm still looking for a grant writer, someone that can fill that role, because they'll pay for themselves 2 or 3 times.
Yes,
And there's so many opportunities there, so I'm feeling really optimistic about where we're going. And this, because this jail is not gonna happen right away, it's gonna give us opportunity, there are gonna be some tax opportunities for us out there that we don't necessarily need to count on, but are probably gonna come through. So we'll see. Public comment, I don't see anyone from the public.
Did you, where is insurance gonna fall? What community?
We're going to bring back an insurance committee.
So until then, who would?
That would come under,
It was under.
Personnel.
It was a we're gonna say that's gonna be Mark again. Yeah.
but that's something that's gonna be done right away to create an insurance committee, because it's such a hot issue and will be.
That's the truth.
Yeah,
It
and
was
I guess
years.
you were, explaining like part of what's gonna be happening, I said in the future with you, I guess to help explain some of the things that I'm gonna be doing, is that, the first month of being in the chair of EMS, I found out that we are going to be losing a certification. And it's our ALS certification. There's a BLS and there's an ALS. And that's advanced life support. Basic is, you know, O2 load and go. You can activate charcoal, insulin, smaller things. And as far as ALS goes, that's life-saving measures. And so when we are audited for it, which there's 2 different kinds of audits, when we are audited for it, we will lose it. And they are not going to shut us down because we lose it. It's going to be noted and it's going to be on file, but they're not going to send it out to someone saying stop all activities. Because there's been a shortage of paramedics in EMS, they've been a little bit more lenient. And I spoke with the director of EMS. They've been a little bit more lenient about it because they realize what's been happening, and there are several counties that are going to lose this ALS certification. And so, in talking with him, that's why I had mentioned something about if there would be a way to maybe put more money towards insurance to make it, you know, one of our benefits look, you know, a little bit better. And also with the wage study, there's that little piece, and I spoke with at Thompson & Thompson, I spoke with Ms. Thompson that did their law firm did our wage study. I will be at least 90% better the next time we have a meeting. And she said that within the next 3 years that they're going to have this piece that we're missing, this checklist, so to speak. But as of right now, no counties do. And so I thought, from talking to her, I made one up and shot it over to Mark Presley. Because if we can keep maybe in step with other counties and pay more towards insurance, that maybe some more of our paramedics would want to stay on. In order to have ALS, you have to be 95% of the emergency calls have to have a paramedic on them, and we don't meet that requirement in Louisiana. So that's where my pieces are going to come from.
Well, before we panic on that issue, we probably need to discuss that with Mr. Beatty again, because I had that discussion with him. And it's not a matter of, it's nothing that's really pressing at this point, because the state is aware that, as you said,
Yeah.
So I don't think we're in immediate danger of losing our illness,
No.
according to Mr. Beatty.
Right. Now, if someone comes in to that position and says, you know what, I'm all about structure and we're gonna da-da-da-da-da, then we'll be in trouble. But several other counties will also be in trouble. But yeah, it's not immediate.
I would stay in real close touch with Mr. Beatty on that issue.
Yeah, but the fact that we're losing it, I mean, it just instantly we need to start pressing towards keeping people and keeping a ALS, especially with us having the prison and everything that goes down out there to the prison. We get them, I'm in the ER that receives a lot of them, and if they didn't have that support getting to us, we're not gonna be having live patients that reach us. That was a shock value for me that was happening.
Comments?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to second. All in favor, say
And, hi.
Thank
It's a
y'all.
Good one today.
Go, I heard about it.